Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. From mechanical problems to website glitches, more answers tonight from BC Ferries.
What happened yesterday, they have assured our ministry will be fixed within a week and won't be happening again.
Will the summer ferry chaos finally come to an end? Plus, Surrey's pushback on cannabis.
It is propping up the black and gray markets.
The worry the city's ban on legal shops is only making things worse. And the wild rescue of a group of hikers in BC's interior.
He was like, it's a fire. But within minutes, it was growing huge.
How a fast-moving wildfire crept up the mountainside.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with BC Ferries and the province trying to assure passengers things will get better. The vessel that's been out of service is expected to be back en route by Friday, and there's hope that means smoother sailing for the rest of the summer. But as Mira Baines tells us, critics are skeptical.
From mechanical problems with vessels to website glitches and lack of clear communication, BC Ferries has faced rough waters this summer, but there could be smoother sailing soon. BC Ferries says the coastal celebration is on track to be in service this Friday. On Tuesday, the BC Ferries website showed a 9 sailing wait. But in the end, those numbers were inaccurate, with passengers waiting only 1 or 2 sailings to get on board. But there was chaos and confusion both at Tsawwassen Terminal and online. The minister in charge of BC Ferries and Transportation in BC says issues with the website will be corrected soon.
What happened yesterday, they have assured our ministry will be fixed within a week and won't be happening again.
The ministry saying that the ferry's summer of trouble all comes down to tech and mechanical issues.
The explanation coming from BC Ferries is related to a general underinvestment in outdated IT systems that have caused us problems in the past. Technology and a complete overhaul is one of the strategic goals of the new CEO, and it can't come fast enough.
Even so, there is more frustration after the posting of a notice on the BC Ferries website. It says due to high request volumes, refund and compensation may take 4 to 6 weeks, well past the usual 7 to 14-day turnaround. In March, the former CEO of ICBC, Nicholas Amenas, took on the job as CEO of BC Ferries. He wasn't available for interviews. BC Ferries says website errors were the result of rebooking passengers from the coastal celebration, which was out of service on yesterday's route. Overall, BC Ferries is looking to upgrade to a modern system.
In terms of real-time emails or text messaging, in terms of what's actually going on at their terminal and with their reservation or their booking, because one of the challenges that we're facing today is that the ferries IT systems, some of them are decades old.
Critics say the ferry service should have been in better shape by now.
This is a government that just gave BC Ferries $500 million last spring. From what we see right now, and from the minister's comments today, there seems to be a lack of accountability with that money.
Whether BC Ferries will see smooth sailing in the weeks to come remains to be seen. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
An explosion rocked a shopping center parking lot in Langley this morning.
We responded and did find a vehicle significantly damaged, I guess would be the understatement. But investigation has led us to believe that it wasn't suspicious and associated to a welding truck that was a part of the construction site there.
Police were called to the Willoughby area in the town center area just after 9:50 a.m. It's not clear yet what exactly caused the truck to explode. No injuries have been reported. BC Transit is planning to buy 115 battery electric buses to better serve communities across the province. The Transit Authority services areas outside of Metro Vancouver and says it plans to spend $400 million. The money is coming from the province and the federal government for the new fleet and charging ports. An electric model bus here, which has been in use for training purposes over the last few months, was on display in Victoria.
So we've had this electric demonstration bus in our fleet since last fall, and we've been using it over the last few months to kind of familiarize our staff and our frontline workers with what an electric bus is going to look like to operate in our fleet. And starting tomorrow, we're looking forward to actually putting it out in service so that the public can get on board.
BC Transit says it plans to transition to a fully electric fleet by 2040. And the province is also putting up $10.5 million to help offset the costs of crime and vandalism on local small businesses.
Every business owner dreads walking up to their storefront to see it vandalized. At a time where every dollar counts, repair costs greatly impact the bottom line.
The rebate program will begin in the fall, with businesses able to apply for as much as $2,000 for the cost of vandalism repairs and up to $1,000 for vandalism prevention. It's been almost 5 years since recreational cannabis was legalized in Canada, and legal marijuana retailers have popped up in cities across BC. But one place you won't find cannabis for sale is Surrey. Joel Ballard is looking into how that ban on selling the product could be driving business away from the city.
We're going to be out there soon, man.
Ever since opening one of Vancouver's first licensed cannabis retail shops, Spencer Sangera has had his sights set on another city.
We're working hard to be one of the first stores that open in Surrey.
It's one of the fastest growing cities in Canada, with untapped market potential. But there's one problem. Surrey still doesn't permit legal cannabis retail stores.
Since I first opened here, one of my biggest demographic of customers were people coming from Surrey. So I think Surrey, definitely one of the most underserved communities in all of Canada for cannabis.
The Surrey Board of Trade sees cannabis as a potential economic boom for the city, but says the lack of access is driving consumers away.
It is propping up the black and gray markets, but in addition to that, consumers of cannabis in Surrey are going to be going to other jurisdictions where there is legal cannabis.
The province says a 2021 survey found that consumers in the Fraser South Health Service Delivery area are less likely to buy cannabis from legal sources compared to consumers in other regions. So why has Surrey taken so long to get into the game? Well, Doug McCallum's council was firmly against opening retail shops. But with the current administration, there's some movement on the file.
We should have been in the business long ago. It's a legal substance, and we have a free market system here in Canada, and Surrey should have had stores.
Earlier this week, Surrey Council voted on a motion that would have seen the city open cannabis retail stores in city-owned spaces. Basically, Surrey would have been the landlord. The motion failed and was referred back to city staff.
The city's business is to regulate the industry to make sure that they follow the rules that we set for them, but we're not in the business to actually be landlords to cannabis stores.
The Board of Trade says it's optimistic, albeit cautiously.
It does impact our reputation as being an inclusive city and wanting growth and opportunity for our residents and for the business community.
Meanwhile, city staff are heading back to the drawing board. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Surrey.
An electrifying rescue from BC's interior to tell you about now, as a group of young hikers found themselves suddenly threatened by a large wildfire. The trio were at the summit of Mount Bruce when suddenly a fast-moving fire crept up the mountainside. What happens next? Well, I'll let them explain.
At first, I was just like, this isn't real. There's no way this is happening right now. Whenever we hike, we're prepared for injuries, we're prepared for encounters with wildlife, we're prepared to have to spend a night if something goes wrong. We're never prepared for a fire to stop us from being able to return to the car. I've never even thought about that before in my life. Me and two of my friends were trying to decide on a short-ish hike to do, and we decided on Mount Bruce just because it's been on our list for a few weeks now. We started the hike around 11 o'clock, got up to the top within an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then we started putting on our bags, getting ready to hike back down the mountain. And we noticed just over a little hill, there was a tiny plume of smoke. And at first we were like, is that a dust storm or is that smoke? So one of the guys I was with ran up over that little hill and he was like, it's a fire. But within minutes, it was growing huge. So it was like a huge mushroom of smoke and we could see flames, and it was so windy up there. It was blowing around like crazy. I was just scared. While I was on the phone with 911 and they were taking all my information and finding out what was going on, a helicopter showed up. So I thought it was search and rescue, but it was actually a local tour company, and they're called Glacier Helicopters in Vermeer. And I guess they saw the smoke and they were just checking it out. So they flew by, we ran out waving our arms and hiking poles at them, and they circled down and landed, and they didn't even ask us anything. The guy jumped out, he ran towards us, he just said, take your backpacks off, hold them below your waist, crouch over, hand me your poles and your bear spray, and follow me. As soon as you get in the helicopter, put on your hearing protection. And that's all we did. We got in there and he said, let's get the hell out of here, and we flew away. I messaged them on Instagram and asked them when I can come by and bring them some beers and chocolate, because we definitely owe them that and more. Thank you so much. I don't know what we would have done without you. You're definitely lifesavers.
An incredible story. Amazing they got out. Glad to hear it. Well, let's go to Vancouver Island now, where Highway 4 has reopened to single-lane alternating traffic at Cameron Lake Bluffs. The province said yesterday it would be closed overnight because of high winds and the risk of rocks falling. In Port Alberni, Alexis Schmidt played Good Samaritan, filling a wagon with muffins, apples, water, and diapers to hand out to stalled travelers. The Transportation Ministry announced temporary closures would start July 18th, so work could be carried out for the damage created from the Cameron Bluffs wildfire. The province is set to resume those scheduled closures again tomorrow morning and afternoon. Well, there are more than 400 active wildfires still burning across the province despite the recent rainfall. The CBC's Jessica Chung spoke with the BC Wildfire Service earlier today to see what that might mean for the rest of the fire season.
Well, we have a crew of reporters in Cranbrook this week. They're following two wildfires, the St. Mary's River and closer to Invermere, the Horse Thief Creek wildfire, What is the outlook for that region? Will it stay hot and dry in terms of the weather?
Yeah, it certainly will. Probably the warmest, driest portion of the province. We know we've seen a fair good amount of precipitation in the northern part of British Columbia, along the coast to some extent, but unfortunately for that southeast corner of the province, still very warm, very dry, trending back towards above seasonal temperatures, and also a little bit windy in that part of the province as well.
We are coming to the end of July. How do you think the rest of the wildfire season will be?
We've had this little bit of rain that's come through the province, and in some areas more than a little bit. We've seen significant amounts in the north and again on the coast. But, again, talking to our predictive services folks, listening to our meteorologists, we get briefings multiple times a day. We do see another warm, drying trend. So for us and for all British Columbians, we can expect to see a continued increase in fire behavior after we get through this nice cool period. We've also had a lot of lightning, and we're going to continue to see that. And of course, lightning causes fire starts. We've had over 75,000 lightning strikes in the 10 days leading up to yesterday. That's a significant amount. When lightning happens, when rain falls, sometimes the fires don't start right away. We call it a holdover lightning start, where the heat and the flames will stay deep in the ground and you won't notice them for sometimes days or weeks after the lightning comes through. So, for us, because of the amount of lightning we've had, we will be continuing to manage lightning-caused fires well into August, if not longer. And again, just watching the warming and drying trend, we will be ready to go, but certainly no end to fire season quite yet.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. Thank you so much for taking the time, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it.
Darius Madavi is here now with a check of the weather. We just heard, what's happening across the province, but you're looking right now in this moment at that fire danger. What are we seeing?
It looks like we might have some good news in the short term, at least. You can see we're looking pretty green and blue across the province, which does mean we have low and very low fire danger in most places. We've got a little pocket of high danger here in the Kootenays, where it does seem like we've kept those dry conditions for a long time, and it doesn't seem like that'll end anytime soon. The big question is this going to last? And this is what we just heard a bit about what's upcoming. And it looks like for the north, we might keep a bit of a reprieve because this low pressure system over Alberta will keep pushing a lot of moisture into the northern and even central parts of the province. It depends how much lightning that comes with, whether it ends up being a net positive or net negative. But on the bright side, we do seem to have quite a bit of moisture coming over the next 24 hours, plenty over Prince George and up east, or in the northeast, sorry. So that is good news. Now, over Vancouver, it looks like our wet spell has come to an end. It looks like we're having dry conditions for the near future. Tonight, 20 and mainly sunny. If you are heading out to the celebration of light later tonight, I do have some good news and a fancy animation because it looks like it'll be nice temperatures, a bit of cloud, but it'll be high cloud, so it shouldn't interfere with seeing those fireworks.
Nice work. Loving that, Darius.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, pioneering BC politician and former journalist Pat Carney has died.
As more women are elected to Parliament and are major role models and major cabinet or opposition leaders, that the tone will change.
Carney's family confirms she died yesterday at the age of 88. In 1980, Carney became the first woman Conservative MP elected in BC. She served as International Trade Minister in Brian Mulroney's government, helping to negotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement. She was later appointed to the Senate and served until 2008. Carney worked to preserve lighthouses and wrote several books. Before politics, she worked as a journalist at the Vancouver Sun and the Province. Well, a beloved BC walking tour showcasing trees from all over the world is facing a difficult dilemma. The tour, which takes place at the Riverview lands, has been running for 30 years. But as Callie McTavish explains, the government organization that oversees the site now wants to charge the nonprofit for its use, something the nonprofit opposes.
Look at the bark on this. Look how remarkable this is.
It's described as one of the best historical collections of trees in Western Canada. But volunteers with the Riverview Horticultural Centre Society say their popular walking tour could soon be uprooted.
Basically, it's a celebration of trees where people get to come out. We usually get 50 to 100 people, and we get different arborists to come and show people the trees and speak about them. Just over 100 years old.
The group says BC Housing, which manages the site in partnership with the Coquitlam First Nation, wants to put an end to their tree tours.
Look at all the seedlings under. These are all the babies.
The Crown Corporation told the society it has to pay $825 per tour to cover the cost of a liaison officer.
I don't think there's any way to interpret their behavior as benevolent or even neutral. I think they want us out.
BC Housing declined an interview, but in a statement writes the liaison officer would protect the privacy of residents receiving treatment for mental health and addictions who live on site.
We do not go near the housing. We respect that. All we need is an email saying where we can go, where we can't go.
BC Housing also writes that it wants to be fair to other groups who are all charged the fee to use the space for other events such as weddings, photo shoots, reunions, and filming.
See, it's gorgeous. I mean, look at that leaf. We love it.
Riverview Horticultural Centre Society, however, says it should be treated differently because it's a not-for-profit and offers its tours free of charge.
We get no money, and to not be able to do that and share with others it's heartbreaking. And it's sad. And we think if we're not sharing and educating, maybe the trees might not last, and that would be awful.
There are no official plans in place at this time to redevelop the old Riverview grounds. In 2015, the province entrusted BC Housing to create a plan to renew the lands, citing among several factors the Crown Corporation's ability to work with First Nations, nonprofits, and private developers to deliver housing. For now, BC Housing has allowed the Riverview Horticultural Centre Society to run 5 free tours this year, with the last one scheduled for October 22nd. Callie McTavish, CBC News, Vancouver.
A big win for Team Canada at the FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia this morning, clinching a crucial 2-1 victory over Ireland and increasing their chance to advance to the next round. Lindsay Duncombe has more on the challenges the squad has faced so far.
Irish fans, thousands of them, brought the traditions and the noise of a soccer-mad country.
We're feeling very excited and very confident that our girls will go out and beat Canada tonight.
Lots of pressure, lots of energy.
Yeah.
We're going to do them tonight.
And Katie McCabe gave those fans something to cheer about. A remarkable goal direct from the corner. In the driving rain, Canada struggled. An own goal by Ireland evened the score.
I think at the beginning of the game they were outplaying us in every part of the game, so I think it was good that the team was able to respond and kind of take that under our chin and step up.
Did they ever? Subbing in after the half, the experience of veterans Christine Sinclair and Sophie Schmidt. A perfect pass from Schmidt to Adriana Leon put Canada ahead, and they stayed there.
It's an incredible feeling, to score, my first goal in a World Cup. It was a great feeling, and hopefully many more to come.
Again, though, the women's play accompanied by controversy over pay. In a letter, the national men's team accused Canada Soccer of attempting to capitalize on the pressure of the Women's World Cup to force an inadequate deal in the ongoing labor dispute with both teams.
Our men's team will do what they do, and we'll finish up this tournament and get back to that political stuff. But right now, we're just here to enjoy the World Cup.
Certainly, that's what Canada's fans are doing.
We were so outnumbered by the Irish fans, but we pulled through.
Lindsay Duncombe reporting from Australia. And as the women are winning at the World Cup, the men's soccer team is accusing Canada Soccer of trying to force them to take an inadequate deal. They're saying they remain unpaid for their World Cup appearance last year. This comes in an open letter. The players are pursuing their first formal agreement. Payment per game and the division of World Cup prize money are among the issues. While the dispute goes on, the players are demanding Canada Soccer sponsors stop using their names and pictures. Irish singer-songwriter Sinead O'Connor, who skyrocketed to fame in the 90s with her hit single Nothing Compares to You, has died at 56. The musician was also known for her political activism and mental health struggles. The CBC's Belle Puri has more on the musician's troubled life and reactions to her death.
Things I just became famous and then messed me up.
Brash, distinctive, outspoken, Sinead O'Connor permanently altered the image of women in rock. In 1990, O'Connor's version of Prince's Nothing Compares to You made her the first female artist to win MTV Video of the Year. It also garnered her a Grammy. Through the fame, she never shied from her political beliefs. In 1992, on Saturday Night Live, she tore up a photo of Pope John Paul II in protest of the Catholic Church.
Fight the real enemy.
I don't think anyone could look at that and not think that made a huge impact on music and how musicians choose to present themselves.
She had such a profound impact that I don't think she was aware of because of her life and her brain chemistry.
After the news of O'Connor's death, musicians and others posted on social media. Boy George wrote, "Up the Irish." Melissa Etheridge, she was haunted all of her life. Jamie Lee Curtis, Sinead's life, grim, shattering, glorious, and triumphant.
She has struggled in her personal life for many, many years. She grew up in an abused family. She was sent away to a home for unruly women in Ireland when she was a teenager. And she was always very outspoken about everything.
O'Connor was also open about her mental health struggles.
I got very suicidal, which I can laugh about now because it's funny. It wasn't funny at the time.
Last year, tragedy when O'Connor's son took his own life at 17. Despite the hardships, the singer managed a career of 10 solo albums. 3 years ago, in her last Canadian concert, she played Vancouver before the pandemic shut down the world.
She said she was feeling a little bit nervous about it all. It was the first night of the tour, but she was surrounded by so much love.
It's been 7 hours.
In In a statement, the singer's family said, "It is with great sadness that we announce the passing of our beloved Sinead." O'Connor was 56. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
They're one of the province's biggest draws, attracting tourists from all corners of BC and abroad. But who tracks the health of BC lakes? We'll tell you more and give you an update on the search for BC's best lake next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Dance instructors in Calgary are creating awareness about some of the risks that come with acrobatic moves in Western partner dancing. With summer in full swing, the crowds descending on the many venues blasting country music, dance professionals are urging people to be more self-aware with their risky moves.
I've seen things go wrong in just a split second, and it happens so fast. 6, 7, 1. Especially during Stampede. Stampede is like, people start drinking at 8 a.m. or earlier. Not everyone is at the same level, not everyone is at the same experience level, not everyone is at the same level of sobriety.
I probably haven't partner danced since my injury, which I was like 18 years old when it happened, so 10 years. One of my guy friends picked me up to start dancing with me, and he was quite intoxicated. And I just have never really been into line dancing or doing anything like that, so instantly I froze and was like, put me down, please. And in this like dip kind of thing that he was doing with me, I think that's when he realized like, oh, she really is uncomfortable. And he just dropped me, like fully let go of me, and I had a quite severe concussion. I sat in a dark room for 3 months, being like no phone, no reading, no stimulation, no anything, and it actually quite altered my personality.
I have seen people out at the bars, and I can only assume that they have never had practice most of the time, because I have seen people teach people at the bar or teach people out on concrete.
Just make sure you check in and are aware that everybody can get home safe at the end of the day, because people at a bar, people at a social dance are there to have fun. They do not go out to get injured, to get hurt.
All week, we've been on the search of BC's best lake. And while many can quickly tell you their favorite destination, it's not quite as easy to tell you who's keeping an eye on these bodies of water. As Justin McElroy explains, thousands of volunteers monitor BC lake health, a growing concern as temperatures rise.
There are so many lakes in British Columbia, more than 380,000 in fact. But when it comes down to who is keeping track of them and checking if they're still healthy, it falls more often than not to volunteers, even in one of the province's biggest tourist destinations.
We're here next to Alta Lake in Whistler to talk to one person who knows a lot about how British Columbia is trying to preserve our lake habitats. Hi, Lynn.
Hi there, Justin. How you doing?
Pretty good.
This is Alta Lake. Well, I've just retired recently from 32 years with the province of BC in water management. 32 years ago, it was more about water quantity. It was about flood and drought. Water quality has always kind of been in the backlight, and it's certainly becoming increasingly a big issue, especially with climate change. And our focus here with Whistler Lakes Conservation Association is all about water quality and what happens in the lake, but also what happens on the land, because that affects what happens in the lakes. There's something like 100+ million lakes on the planet, making up a huge percent, 80+% of the freshwater supply. So lakes are an important part of the hydrosphere, and they're important in watersheds at a local level within the watersheds in which they lie.
So I've got a very scientific question for you. Is this the best lake in BC?
You know, I love Alta Lake. I've been here, coming here since 1982, but my favorite lake is Chilko Lake. So Chilko's my number one, Alta's my number two.
All right, we're going to go down there to your number 2 lake and monitor it a little bit, right?
Okay, you betcha. Let's go.
All right, let's go.
We're going to show you what we do as citizen scientists on Whistler Lakes, the monitoring that we do and why we do it. Come on and meet Tom and Peggy English. Tom and Peggy both sit on the Whistler Lakes Conservation Association board, as do I, and they are volunteer monitors.
And so why is it so important for volunteers to be part of it? Why isn't it something that the government could or should be doing?
It's a good question. You know, government can't do it all alone, nor can other big organizations. There's so many lakes in the province, and there's only so much money and so many staff. So increasingly we're seeing the rise of citizen science, you know, really globally, right down to the local level.
So I think I'm at the bottom now.
How many times a month are you monitoring an individual lake?
Usually once every 2 weeks. Tom and I thought it was so much fun and enjoyed it.
We did it every week.
We did it every week.
This is a digital sampling unit, and it's called Pro Solo. This enables us to measure dissolved oxygen, which is a really important indicator and window into lake health. Everything needs oxygen to live, and with the mixing of lakes and the importance of mixing up that oxygen and nutrients, it's a key indicator. I'm get you to hold the unit, and I'm going to go do this.
I'm a scientist now.
I'm going to drop it down till the probe is fully immersed. Now press enter. We've got dissolved oxygen of 93.0%.
Is that good?
That's good. There's
What does that mean?
Well, it means that there is oxygen in the lake for all the living things that live in the lake. But at deeper, colder levels, there's less oxygen. And so it's important, if there's life living at the bottom of a lake, that's why that spring overturn, the mixing of the layers after a long cold winter is important to feed the lake. You know, when I look at the history of Whistler Lakes and the valley and the early pioneers, and before that, we understand the ancestors of the Squamish and Lil'wat nations lived and hunted and traded in these waters. And they lived by a principle that's referred to in modern day as seventh generation principle. It's really easy for me to reflect forward to my great-great-grandchildren, and I hope they can experience the lakes like we are here today.
What worries you as someone that looks at this, that studies this, that has cared about lakes for decades? When you look into the future, that gives you pause?
We know government budgets are prioritized and reallocated and moved, and there just isn't the funding or the resources to do it all. It's not easy to nurture a stewardship ethic in a resort municipality, a world destination resort like Whistler. It takes time, it takes resources, it takes people, it takes partners, and that momentum has to continually be fed and nurtured.
It's such a broad and global issue, but it doesn't sound like you despair.
I'm always half glass full. You got to keep putting your best foot forward and try to make a difference. Because if we all do that, then the world's a better place.
Not a bad gig Justin has, getting to go out to all these beautiful lakes in that search for BC's unofficial best lake. We are down to just 16 of them now. 8 of those are in southwest BC from the Lower Mainland to Vancouver Island, and a further 8 are in the rest of the province. You can still decide which lakes make it to the quarterfinals. You can vote on our website until 10 p.m. tonight. The champion will be crowned before BC Day. Amidst heightened concerns and criticism overseas and at home, a big shakeup of the federal cabinet. Who's in and who's out is next.
Total destroying for my soul or negative, and I guess I want not to be maybe as defensive as I may have been in the past and not be as afraid to be myself.
Sinead O'Connor burst onto the music scene in the late 80s. Shaved head and angry words. Then came the big hit, her version of Prince's Nothing Compares to You.
Nothing compares. Nothing compares to you.
And then came the controversy.
Fight the real enemy.
She kept a low profile, but in a playful bit of casting in a Neil Jordan film, she played the Holy Virgin Mary.
Haven't seen you for a pair of years.
It's not that I haven't been thinking about you, Francie.
She became a priest in a renegade sect, and she fought a nasty custody battle over her daughter.
It's a terribly painful process, you know. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and I can honestly say that I'm grateful for the experience, although it almost destroyed me. I'm very grateful for it because I learned an awful lot out of it.
6 years since you held a baby while I ranked the bedroom.
Sinead O'Connor is something of an anomaly. In the breathless, overheated pop music industry, she's resisted packaging and marketing to get her work across undiluted and without pretense. She's spoken out and worked against the pointlessness, hypocrisy, and silliness of so-called star treatment. Therefore, in O'Connor's case, putting her on display like some kind of exotic creature seems odder than usual, and it made certain questions seem even more ludicrous than they might appear otherwise.
If you're such an ordinary person, I'm wondering why you're so snippy today.
Why I'm so what?
Snippy today. You realize you're smoking, don't you?
I realize I'm smoking well observed.
O'Connor has always spoken most profoundly through her music. She's fused a heartfelt, direct, and lyrical Irish sensibility for words with musical strains from dozens of widely differing sources. All of that backs a versatile voice that can sound alternately like a soft breeze or the keening wail of a Celtic banshee. Her approach to both her work and the world was best articulated by Popeye the Sailor, who said, "I am what I am, and that's all that I am." She's worked to make sure that the public understands that. But even so, misconceptions abound.
The biggest problem I have is that people assume, and I think we've witnessed it today, that I'm very aggressive, probably because I've got no hair and because I speak my mind.
The federal cabinet looks very different today after a dramatic shakeup by the Prime Minister. As the CBC's Marina von Stackelberg reports, 20 ministers have new or expanded portfolios. 7 have been dropped.
What a team. I am so excited.
After 8 years in power, Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pitched his same message to Canadians with a newly recast cabinet.
This is a moment where putting forward the strongest possible team with fresh energy and a range of skills that are going to be able to continue the really important work.
7 rookies have been added to the roster, among them Toronto MP Richie Valdez, the first Filipina appointed to cabinet in Canadian history.
Mabuhay. I, Richie Valdez, do swear.
Several backbenchers are getting major cabinet gigs. Arif Virani is Canada's new Minister of Justice. That job left empty after David Lametti was completely dropped from cabinet in a surprise move.
I've not spoken to David Lametti yet, but I will be speaking with him very, very soon.
Toronto MP Gary Annan Desangari is the new Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. Jenna Sudds, a former Ottawa City Councillor, will head up the family's portfolio.
I, William Sterling Blair.
Most existing ministers are also getting a job change. Bill Blair becomes Minister of National Defence. Anita Anand moves from that post to President of the Treasury Board. Mark Holland will be in charge of health. The housing portfolio, now combined with infrastructure, has a new minister in Sean Fraser.
We're going to be working very hard to ensure that we're looking at infrastructure projects and housing projects, not in isolation from one another, but looking at how people actually live their lives.
Dominic LeBlanc remains Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, but will also take on the troubled public safety portfolio, left vacant by Marco Mendicino, who was also turfed by Trudeau.
The one minister who's responsible for these failures didn't get moved, and that minister is Justin Trudeau.
A new poll released today shows the Conservative opposition has a 10-point lead over the governing Liberals. Many of these new cabinet ministers come from ridings that could be key battlegrounds in the next election. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
An Ontario couple is sharing their story after they bought airline tickets to Florida, only to discover upon arriving at the airport there was no flight. As Nicole Williams explains, the pair then had to fight to get their phantom flight refunded.
It's far from how Jamie Christensen thought his trip to Florida would go. He and his wife bought 2 tickets from Flair Airlines back in March. Direct return flights from Ottawa to Fort Lauderdale for $600 total. But it was only until months later, after the couple packed their bags and arrived at the Ottawa airport the day of their trip, that an agent told them there was no such flight.
I was completely flabbergasted by it. I couldn't believe that this is where we were with this. I never thought that I would have to, if I bought a ticket from them, I would have to call them up and say, hey, I have a ticket from you guys. Can you verify this, please? Or are you just pulling my leg and there is no flight here?
Christensen says he and his wife ended up booking flights with another airline, costing nearly triple the amount of the original tickets and taking hours longer. The couple filed a formal complaint and at first were denied a refund. Flair representatives told them they were never charged for the flights, and Christensen says that's not true. He has the receipt and credit card statement to prove it.
I understand that these things happen. It's unfortunate that it happened to us, but I'm just kind of expecting that they would take accountability for it and say, yeah, we messed up and we're going to make this right for you. But they just have no desire to do that.
The incident comes as Flair grapples with its reputation as the worst airline in dealing with passenger complaints, according to federal data from the Canadian Transport Agency.
There really isn't any oversight, any regulatory oversight or any administrative oversight about the actual selling practices associated with carriers such as Flair or any.
This expert says cases like this aren't common, but they do happen. He says low-cost carriers tend to preemptively sell seats for a trip before confirming a flight and then cancel if they haven't sold enough.
Flair Airlines did eventually return the couple's money and are apologizing to them for any inconvenience experienced. It says it made a mistake in this case, though it didn't explain how it was made. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
A long ordeal ended today for actor Kevin Spacey. A jury in London, England, cleared him of sexual assault charges that could have landed him in jail. As Christine Birak reports, Spacey's career ground to a halt in 2017 when he first faced accusations.
After 12 hours of deliberating, the jury returned to a London courthouse to find Kevin Spacey not guilty on all charges.
I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully before they reach their decision. And I am humbled by the outcome today.
The Oscar-winning American actor was charged with 9 counts of sexually assaulting 4 men in the UK between 2001 and 2013. During much of that time, Spacey was artistic director at the Old Vic, a prestigious theatre here in London. The allegations against him revolved around what the prosecution called sexual bullying, including unwelcome or forceful touching. Over the course of this 3-week London trial, lawyers repeatedly reminded the jury not to be starstruck by the actor's fame. Elton John also appeared by video in Spacey's defense. Spacey's star power was one of the central issues at the heart of this case. The prosecution argued the actor abused the power that his reputation and fame afforded, enabling him to do what he wanted when he wanted. Spacey's defense argued his only crime was hanging out with young people. Most of the accusers in Britain were young male actors. On the stand, Spacey said 3 of the accusers were lying, and what happened with the 4th man was a consensual act. He denied all the charges against him. His lawyer argued the actor had already been tried and canceled on social media, and when asked what was motivating his accusers, Spacey said on the stand it was simply money. Spacey also said he had hardly worked since publicly being accused of sexual assault by another man in 2017. In that case, a New York jury found that Kevin Spacey did not molest Anthony Rapp at a party in 1986. Today's not guilty decision comes on Spacey's 64th birthday. When the verdict was announced, the actor is said to have put his hand on his chest and mouthed to the jury, "Thank you." Christine Burak, CBC News, London.
Coming up, temperatures are going up in parts of Canada. How it affects the human body next.
I want to revisit something in your past and with respect to America specifically. 3 things happened in your career that were extraneous to your music but had an extraordinary impact on your music. And they were, of course, Saturday Night Live and the picture of the Pope, we know. The Star-Spangled Banner controversy for the concert in, I guess it was New Jersey. And then ultimately Bob Dylan doing the concert, the tribute concert, and having a really negative reaction from however many fans it was. But you know, it seems to me that that kind of indicated the point where after that you were somehow disposable to America. I mean, it almost seemed like you were discarded by Americans.
Well, no, I don't think that. I think some people, a small group of people, may have felt that way about me and may have reacted that way about it. But as many people, again, were very positive about it all and opened their doors. You know, as for record sales, like my record had already dropped off naturally. Like records don't sell for years and years anyway. You know, so it didn't actually have an effect on my record sales or my career in that way. It did from the point that I think there are now some kind of radio stations that would have a bit of a problem playing my records, you know. But that's okay. I mean, we were just talking about that. You can have a career, quite a nice, comfortable career without having all of those things, you know. And I'm quite happy with that, you know what I mean? I just want to make a living, basically, you know.
Through when your nights are lonely, through when your dreams are only blue, this is to mother you.
So bring it right up to the present then, with respect to Gospel Oak specifically, I mean, it might well be perceived because of the tenderness in it and the warmth and the hope that's there, that it's almost like an olive branch in a way.
I wouldn't say that it would be correct to say that it was an olive branch, but I guess, and I don't know if I'm offering one or not, but I guess I deserve, you know, to work as much as anybody else does, you know what I mean? And, you know, when you're in your 20s, you are angry and you wouldn't be normal if you weren't, you know what I mean? So I think I deserve not to have those things held against me, you know. But I'm not ashamed of those things, and in fact I'm proud of them, you know. And if that means that some people wouldn't play my records, that's fine with me. It's, you know, there's a price to pay for everything, you know. And I don't want a career so badly that I'm going to lick butt, you know. So.
While we are experiencing some cooler weather in BC today, there's a heat wave in Ontario. Temperatures as high as 33 degrees Celsius are in the forecast for the rest of the week. The CBC's Lauren Pelly has more on how high temperatures can affect your health.
Extreme heat is uncomfortable and incredibly dangerous for your body. We're checking out a university lab to find out why.
There's lots of ways that heat can become a danger.
Stephen Chung leads a research team here at Brock University, and I'm their latest subject.
So we're just going to put this kind of like at your bra line here. We're going to measure heart rate.
The team is sending me into a humid room where the temperature is set to more than 40 degrees.
We're going to put a 3-lead electrocardiogram. Okay.
So these are ECG pads.
First, I'm getting covered in sensors to monitor all my vital signs.
And this is just to kind of collect like overall skin temperature.
Next, a temperature check.
37.0.
Then it's time to step on a scale.
So this is where we're starting, and we're gonna look at my weight after just to see how much water weight I've lost in that extreme heat and humidity. So let's see. Woo! It's definitely hot, I would say.
Into the chamber I go.
So this is the temperature right now and the humidity. So that's what we're dealing with right now. I'm gonna be running in this.
For 20 long minutes.
We're starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
I can feel my heart rate go up quickly.
With the skin temperature sensors already telling your brain, hey, I'm going to be warm, you need to start getting rid of heat. So your sweat glands are going to start working to try to get water onto your skin.
But with so much moisture in this room, my sweat can't evaporate, so my body can't cool down.
That's why when there's a sudden heat wave, that's the biggest risk of these cardiovascular events, these heart attacks, hospital admissions, because people are not adapted to heat and they're just suffering from being in those hot environments. Okay, you can straddle the treadmill.
Finally, my run is done.
All right, you put me through my paces. And this air feels so refreshing.
144.8. I lost more than a pound in water weight.
38.6.
And even my body's core temperature went up.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that was hot.
You're not in a dangerous zone yet, but you're definitely in a hot zone in terms of your core body temperature.
What's scary is that extreme heat can impact your whole body from head to toe.
You may be thinking less clearly, you may be dehydrated, so therefore your heart is working harder.
Chung says if you can't cool down quickly,
you can actually have risk of heat stroke, which is where you have so much heat built up in you that you are really cooking yourself.
Wow, really good story, putting it into perspective. And losing a pound of water weight after that is just incredible. Darius Madavi joins us now, and you're also talking heat, a record that's been broken.
Yes, a couple records that have been broken, actually. Since we're talking about hot and humid weather in Florida, we've talked a lot about the southern U.S. seeing heat waves. Miami-Dade County, which is in the south of Florida, they've seen a record-breaking 22 days in a row under heat advisories or heat warnings. The previous record was 3 days. But the record I really want to talk about has to do with ocean temperature. Now, we don't keep official records about sea surface temperature, but an unofficial record was estimated in 2020 to be 99.7 degrees Fahrenheit, which is close to 37, 38 degrees Celsius, in Kuwait. It looks like that record might have been broken in Florida earlier this week. On Monday, we recorded a temperature of 38.3 on a buoy just off the coast of Florida. And that is really concerning considering how many marine species call this part of Florida's coast home. If we look, it's part of a larger trend of this Atlantic heat wave that we've been seeing pretty much since March. You can notice that Florida is, we're talking 4 or 5 degrees Celsius above where it should be this time of year. It's caused massive coral bleaching. One group saw 100% coral bleaching in part of Florida. So that's a really concerning thing that we're watching these days because of all these extreme temperatures, not just on land, but also in the water. Fortunately, nothing like that here in BC. We're seeing temperatures actually below seasonal across most of the province, part of the southern interior below or at seasonal. Because of that low pressure system that swept through, bringing a lot of marine air in, temperatures are still recovering from that. In Vancouver, we'll be looking at getting back to seasonal probably tomorrow, and that's the case for much of the province. Temperatures are coming back up a bit as some of that rain passes through in the north from that low we looked at in Alberta earlier this hour, and temperatures in the southern interior coming back up as well. In Vancouver, we're looking at sun again for the foreseeable future. No rain in the forecast ahead. Very seasonable lows, should be very comfortable at night. And again, temperatures in the low to mid 20s for the week coming ahead.
All right, thanks, Darius.
Thanks.
It's a powerful project paying tribute to those killed during police interactions. After the break, a look at Vancouver's new exhibit marking 10 years since the Black Lives Matter movement was founded.
He should dream about something like a new bite, not about when war ends and that our home will not get bombed.
No one wanted to leave Ukraine, but we have this situation and we need other countries like Canada so much in our life.
Of the over 200,000 Ukrainians that have arrived to Canada, more than 20,000 have arrived to this city.
We arrived in the end of March with my son Boris and my mom Olena. We didn't plan to leave even Kyiv at the beginning. We started to go to the basement of our building. It was as a shelter from rockets. After a week of spending night there, we decided that we should leave Ukraine and find a safe place for Boris.
I had a very good life in Ukraine, to be honest, and I have never thought about coming to another country. In January, we had very powerful explosion. It was too close to my building where I lived, and there were almost 50 dead people. It was like the last drop of patience for me. In a few days, I really woke up and talked to my sisters that we have to change something and we have to choose safety for our future and for our life. I heard that Calgary is similar to my city, very beautiful nature and a lot of job opportunities. It seemed at that moment.
When we arrived, I don't have a job, and of course I sent in a resume, I attended job fairs, I even registered in one of the job fairs as a volunteer translator.
I visited Calgary Career Expo, but still I don't have a result. And my sister also, because her English is a little bit worse. I'm a little bit sad about it because I had a high position in the biggest online school in Ukraine.
They're also very often not able to get into the professions that maybe they've been trained for. In the meantime, they're having to work in low-paying service jobs. And then you add on top of that the struggle to find housing where rents are skyrocketing. More than 1 million people, and those are just Ukraine people, have applied to come to Canada. Of those, 750,000 have been approved, and only of those, 200,000 have arrived. So 500,000 more people are in the queue to come here, and that grows every single day.
I see how Ukrainians live here, and I'm sure that I will make here a wonderful life and I will be a real Canadian and with Ukrainian soul.
I'm happy that on Monday it will be my first working day in a company where I worked in Ukraine.
After 3 years of preparation, an art exhibition paying tribute to Black individuals who lost their lives interacting with police across North America has launched in East Vancouver. The exhibition opened its doors at the Alternatives Gallery. And as Benit Brach tells us, the project honors the more than 400 Black people who have died because of police action over the last decade.
This Vancouver art exhibit is honoring Black lives lost while interacting with police in Canada and the United States. Walking in, there's 483 names of unarmed Black lives lost to police. On the walls are the portraits and stories of 10 Black people who died, including George Floyd. His death set off protests over race and police brutality across the world in 2020.
To have these names and these faces re-entered into your memory, because of course we don't want anyone else to be forgotten. There's a lot to come from an exhibition like this that reminds us the work is not yet done.
This video plays the performance of Black Elegy, a classical music piece composed by Atlanta-based group Orchestra Noir, specifically for this event.
I composed it around the time George Floyd had died here in America. And I wanted to sort of express the pathos that was sort of in America at the time.
Organizers say they're pleased to see people in Canada have been increasingly aware of systemic racism against Black people since the height of the Black Lives Matter protests 3 years ago. The exhibition is free and will run from July 26th to August 2nd at Alternatives Gallery.
Definitely worth checking out for sure. That's it for our show tonight. Thank you so much for watching CBC Vancouver News at 6. I will be on assignment for the next 3 weeks, and Dan and Leanne will be here as your host. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye.